Hi everybody, thank you for joining me on this video again. Today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about myself, my neurodivergence and how I think differently and how I can hopefully help you. Anyway, let's kick it off and let's get started. So first of all, I'm Nick. I was 40 years old last October and I've been diagnosed with autism. Autism is a really interesting neurodivergence that I'm only just starting to explore, because I've essentially lived my life feeling completely different. I've spent every moment in my life up to the point where I was diagnosed feeling like I was apart from everybody else. As a child, as a teenager, in university, I've always struggled to fit in. I've always seen the world differently. I've seen the underlying structure and patterns and systems that underlie modern civilization. And as a child, it made it very difficult, and as an adult, even more so as an adult, it made it very difficult to incorporate myself into society fully. I've always struggled to make friends, for example, because I do something called, and I'm sure if you're watching this and you've got autism, I do a lot of what is called masking. So this essentially is the act of trying to basically pretend you're somebody that you're not. And it is exhausting. It is absolutely exhausting. I've always struggled, because the problem is that I will mask, and I will pretend to be something that I think whoever I'm talking to wants me to be, instead of myself. And the problem is that I've found over the years that people can sniff out inauthenticity extremely easily. And I always struggle to make friends because of that. I always struggle to get to know people, because I tried to be what I thought the situation needed me to be, instead of just being myself. And myself is a very interesting person. I am very much systems driven. I'm very much numbers driven. I'm very much quantifiably driven. To give you a small example, I used to be obsessed, in fact I still am obsessed with certain quantifications of my life. For example, when I drive my car, I am obsessed with how many miles per gallon I get from my car. I've stopped keeping track of it in a spreadsheet, but I used to. Another one as well is that I used to try and quantify how much joy I got from different actions and different experiences in my life. I would try to rate them constantly. And then I had an equation I did where I would try to figure out, okay, if this action cost me this much, and I did it for this many hours, and I enjoyed it this much, then this is the rating. So I should do more things that are rated a certain way and less things that are rated another way. I'll give you an example. I recently played through Cyberpunk on PlayStation 5, and I bought the game for £25 on Amazon when it was on sale before Christmas, and I've sunk 100 hours into it. I have in total. To me, that is incredible value. So I quantify it as 25 pence per hour. What can you do in life that is only 25 pence per hour? And I will gravitate towards that. My brain will become obsessed with that number. Wow, I'm getting 25 pence. And then I'll go, okay, well, what is the joy factor? I'll go, and joy is rated from 0 to 10, say. So I will go, okay, I would say my enjoyment of this was a 10, just for simplicity's sake right now. So that means I'll divide the total amount of 25 pence per hour again by 10. So that'll give me 2.5. 25 pence per hour, 2.5 pence per hour, or 2.5 pence per unit of joy, or whatever it is. Again, this is a problem with it, is that with the autism. So I'm trying to do this constantly with everything. And the thing is that it causes problems, it does, because, like, for example, I will look at things that, like my partner, who's incredible with me, she will say, oh, let's go out for food. And I'll talk more about going out for food in a second. But we'll go out for food, and I'll say, well, we've just paid £30 for food, and we've only been in here for an hour. And I will say, well, that's cost me £30 per hour, whereas I'm enjoying these games for 25p per hour. It's less than 100 difference. It's more than 100 times difference. And I've got more than 100 times value out of playing my games and going for this food I've had to pay £30 for 1 hour. And then my partner will say to me, well, it's not just about the number of hours, it's about the experience, about it's about the number of hours it saved you in cooking, the amount of effort, and so on. So even if you say, right, okay, it saved cooking, say, for 2 hours or an hour, okay, it's still only 2 hours. The effort and the joy, you can add those in, I suppose. And then I start to think to myself, okay, well, that's still nowhere near, I'm playing a great game. And I struggle like this. I will go around in circles constantly about trying to think, well, how can she loves doing this, but it doesn't make any sense. How can it make any sense? It makes no sense quantifiably to prefer going out for something like food in a restaurant. I can go for a cup of coffee, I can with my best friend, with my friend Ian, I can for 3 hours. And I'm thinking to myself, this is incredible. This is a 10 out of 10 experience, yet it still doesn't quantifiably fit in with this idea in my head. Now, the problem is that I don't at any point think to myself, well, these things might just not be quantifiable. Some things are just vastly more joyful, or that actually your scale is wrong. Something like playing games should only be a 5, whereas going out with people should be a 30 or a 40. And I find it extremely difficult to look past that. I think to myself, oh my God. And then I start going around in circles again. And I think to myself, okay, well, if this part of my system is broken, then all the parts of my system must be broken. So yeah, the autism can be very difficult to pass constantly, and to manage in your head, in my head in particular. And another example is I suffer from a thing called bottom-up thinking. Well, suffer is the wrong term. Bottom-up thinking is where you constantly assess all situations from the details up, whereas the vast majority of modern humans do the opposite. They assess from the large down to the small details. So to give you an example, when I go out for food with Beth or her family or whatever, I can get extremely anxious because my autistic brain is taking in all of the data. You must have seen people wearing earphones in the past. I've got my noise cancelling earphones by here. We're constantly absorbing vast amounts of data, and we're not able to filter it correctly, or we're not able to filter it like neurotypical people do. We filter it like we would have back on the Serengeti 150, 200,000 years ago, because it made sense for us to be constantly aware of everything that was going on around us. If we missed a detail, it could kill us. If we missed a detail, it could be a lion in the brush, or it could be a giant hawk swooping down to pick us up and eat us. So it made sense to constantly absorb every single bit of information it did. But the beauty of it back then was that At any given time, you'd hear the rustle of the wind, you'd hear the picking of fruits or seeds of your kin in the trees or something like that, and everything else would be silent. You might hear the distant howl of something that'll turn your head quickly, and you'd go, what's that? And then it would dissipate and you'd realize it was in the distance. So you were taking in thousands of times less amount of data per second, per moment, than you are these days. These days you walk down a street and you've got multiple cars, you've got multiple people, you've got different buildings, you've got birds, you've got so many things constantly moving and changing, so many different sounds that we have to absorb. And it means that we are constantly hyper aware of our surroundings, and we are just overwhelmed by this data. So and why this matters is that from a bottom up perspective, we are constantly creating the world from the bottom up. We don't generalize well, or I don't generalize well. So for example, if I go into a restaurant like the one just down the road from my house, I will go in there and I will, sorry, I've just clicked off something but there now. I've been in there a number of times. When I go in there, I will always feel a little bit overwhelmed. Especially if there's a lot of people in there. If there's a lot of people in there, I can't filter out all of the conversations. I hear everything. Just thinking about it now makes me feel sick. I can't filter out everything. So I'm taking all of this information in. I'm surrounded by people. That's why I prefer to go to restaurants when they're nearly empty. It's such a nicer experience. And it was difficult because it's interesting because you're taking in all this information, and it's extremely difficult to filter everything out, but you just get on with it. You move forward, you mask it, you say, oh, that's fantastic, this is a beautiful meal, because this is what I've read people say, this is what I've seen people do in films and on TV and everything like that. And if people on TV say, like, this is a fantastic meal, thank you so much, this is wonderfully cooked, please pass that on to the chef, I really appreciate it. I've learned to say that, not out of intuition, but just out of by essentially a script. It's a script. I have to mask it. That is what you're expected to say in situations like this. But the problem is that, like I said, bottom up thinking. I'll go into another restaurant, and that restaurant is nothing like the first one to me. Now, to my partner, she can go into another restaurant and she'll know, right, there's a toilet, there's an exit, there's food, there's tables. And all restaurants have these things. But to me, that's not enough. To me, I am entering a new environment that I've never been in before. And I start building up my knowledge of it from the ground up. Right, there's steps to go in, okay? The door, right, this is a bit creaky. It's red, okay? Oh, this is a nice fire. I walk in, oh my God, there's so many tables and chairs. Where's the toilet? I don't know where the toilet is. Where's the fire exits? Where do I have to go to pay? Where's the bar? Oh my God, the bar is to the right instead of to the left, like in this other restaurant. And I very quickly get completely overwhelmed by this. And it is extremely difficult to cope with. I've likened it to saying that it like I said earlier about the Serengeti, it is like, it essentially makes evolutionary sense to be a bottom-up thinker. Think of it like this. If you had a cave and you were happy living in it, and you've lived in it for 6 months, but then you've got to move. You've got to move for some reason. Perhaps there's a lack of food in the local area. If you went to another cave and you thought top down about it, just assuming, yeah, this is safe, there's a good chance you would die, because it might be in exactly the same cave, but there might be a bear in it, and so you'd be killed. So it makes sense for you to go into every cave assuming that I need to assess this cave from the bottom up to make sure it's safe for me and my family. And I think that autistic people, myself, I am capable of generalizing a little bit. Like, I can go into a building and assume the roof isn't going to fall down. But my ability to do it is much less than a typical neurotypical person. And it can be utterly exhausting. It really can. Bottom-up thinking, it gives you superpowers. Like, for example, bottom-up thinking allows me, which is what I'm good at automation, systemization, things like that, creating products. Bottom-up thinking basically allows you to, it never makes you assume that something will work. It always makes you start from the bottom again and work up. And so whenever I'm looking at a system for a business, I never assume that this is something that should work a certain way, or assume this is something that should run at a certain speed. It's always, I start again every single time without fail. I never go in assuming I don't, because that's just not how my brain works. But because that is how most people's brains work, it often feels like the world is designed for neurotypical people. You know, as I said to my partner, most people don't understand autism, ADHD, and that it can and is a disability. It can massively affect your ability to function in society, because society has been designed around neurotypical ways of thinking and neurotypical brains. And it is exhausting for somebody who has autism to live and work in a world like this. Controversial opinion by here, and I understand that obviously it was horrendous for a lot of people and a lot of people got hurt. But when COVID came along, and I'm sure a lot of people will be able to empathize with this and totally understand, when COVID came along in the UK, we had lockdowns, and lockdown was probably so far the most incredible experience of my life. There were so few people around. There were so few cars. There was so much less noise. The sound of the birds singing was so much louder. The rustle of the leaves was so much louder. That constant white noise of nature in the background. You could walk down a street and there'd be nobody. You just hear the rustle of blowing leaves. You would see animals that would never come out, just roaming around, like badgers on the street, foxes playing in daylight. All of the animals that had been consigned to living at night suddenly emerged out into the light of the day. And I thought to myself, people spend their lives looking for Eden, looking for heaven, looking for that place where they belong, and then we don't even realize that it's right under our noses. I remember the summer, the COVID summer, where because cars weren't spewing and spilling their fumes out into the air and all the dust to create clouds, it was blue sky after blue sky, day after day of clear skies, of beautiful sunlight, of beautiful blue skies enveloping us. And it was beautiful. It was where I belonged. And it is such a shame that, from my point of view, and obviously the world would never want to go to this, but it was such a shame that I had to leave that type of world, because it was just so much more, it was idyllic, it was peaceful, and it allowed my autistic neurodivergent brain to rest, to find peace. And I wish that, I don't wish that COVID would come back. I would obviously never wish that. You know, I would never wish that on people. I care that much, at least. I just wish that there was a way of getting that back a little bit, of ridding myself of the constant hustle and bustle of modern life and just having quiet and peace, while still being present to experience it. Anyway, I know I've gone on a tangent by here, and if you've gotten this far, we're 20 minutes in. If you've gotten this far, I really do appreciate it. Obviously, I'm trying to build a YouTube channel up around extreme authenticity, to be vulnerable in a world where vulnerability is seen as a weakness, where vulnerability is seen as something to be hidden. And I don't think it should be. I think vulnerability should be celebrated as strength. And I want to show that it can be. I don't know what I'm going to talk about yet. Sometimes I think to myself, I'll talk about games, or I'll talk about neurodivergence, or I'll talk about business. And I would love to talk about all those things, but I don't know what to focus on yet. And I'm just grateful that you have been here with me to go on this journey together, with me being open and honest today, because it's so hard these days. And I hope if you're watching and you're thinking about and experiencing similar things to me, that you can be open and honest as well. I'd love for you to leave a comment so that we can have a conversation about how you feel about all these things, because you're not alone. And you never will be alone, even though it can feel like that sometimes. Sometimes it can feel like you're the only person in the world who has to deal with these things, but you're not. And I'm here to say to you that I can help you. You can help me. It's not just a case of, I'm not a guru, I'm not a psychologist, I don't know everything about all of this stuff. All I have is my lived experience, my learned experience. And even if you don't have autism or ADHD or anything like that, if you're watching this and you think to yourself, God, this boy is talking rubbish, and I wouldn't blame you, please leave a comment, because I would love to learn from you, because I'd love to learn from what it's like looking from the outside in, instead of me on the inside trying to build a picture. It's like trying to paint it's like trying to paint a forest, what a forest looks like from the outside when you're inside it, and it can be difficult. So I would really love to have your thoughts on it. And again, I really would like to emphasize that I mean no disrespect to anybody who went through COVID and suffered losses, because it was horrendous from that point of view, and I would never wish that back. I just wish that the world could be a little quieter for my brain. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I hope that as time goes on, I will find a way to find my direction with this, and that you will maybe like and subscribe just because I resonate with you and you'd like to follow along with my story, my experiences, and everything I have to offer. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye.